Good afternoon. I'm so excited about coming with you today and sharing this new podcast. Before I introduce our guest, I wanted to give you a promo about our new book, Leaving Your Life Imprint. Comes out on April the 4th. And I'm really excited. We're going to have friends and family all come. It's going to be at Christ Church. So we're really excited about the book. It's taken about 2 years to write this thing, and it's birthing now as we're talking. It's getting to the publisher, and we're excited. So Amazon.com will have that. But today, I wanted to share an imprint with you with a friend of mine that I've known for neither he or I probably won't admit how many years, but a long time. Dear friend. His name is Dan Miller, and Dan is someone that if you're ever looking for somebody to talk about career, somebody who can talk about life coaching, someone who can actually help you find your purpose, even. This is a wonderful man that has helped me in particular, and so he's put an imprint on my life, which no pun intended with the book, but seriously, I'm looking forward to Dan sharing with us. So let's just get started. I will say this: Dan Miller and Joanne are some of the most caring, loving people that I know, and I think you'll get that from just listening to him today. But Dan, share with us a little bit what got you started in the work, and our work there through the Barnabas Ministry was. It seems like there were some epiphany moments that happened to you, but share with us, what was the epiphany that got you to do what you're doing?
Well, doing what I'm doing, helping people discover the work that they were born to do, and work that is fulfilling and an application of God's calling, came right out of teaching a Sunday school class, the church you and I were attending years ago. And it evolved in a way that I never intended what I was doing just for ministry and teaching the Sunday school class to turn into what I did work-wise. But the needs seemed to be so great. I mean, people came to that class from other churches and then from other states. We moved it from a Sunday morning to a Monday night, so we wouldn't have the interference of sermons around it, had more extended time, and it just grew. And in that period of time where I was figuring things out myself, where I was coming back from a really devastating business crash myself, but in learning the principles, as so often is true, we learn best what we're teaching, or we're drawn to teach what we are learning at the time, I guess. And that was really how that evolved. And so in helping people through their own career transitions while I was going through one of my own, developed into this material more and more. And now for the last 30 years, that's exactly what I've done, is to help people in going through these relentless times of transition that we all hit, and just helping figure out, what should I be doing in this next season of life as it relates particularly to work and career.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. If you knew Dan's early childhood upbringing, you knew that he was a man of work. I'm sure his dad was not happy. His dad was a great farmer and just loved the Lord, but that wasn't Dan's calling. And I'm sure that sometimes not only Dan, with other farming families, it's hard to leave that. But I just applaud him for because he had to morph and had to convince his family that, hey, this is not my calling. I have something else. And that's one of the things that I'm hoping you'll share with us too, is that difficult transition of family, friends, and everything that have these expectations for our lives and may not necessarily be ours. I know for me personally, I just want to say this about Dan. He helped me specifically. I thought I knew what I wanted to do, but he actually made me hone down. He said, Kenny, why don't you put down a mission statement and then a purpose, and that will help you kind of drive where you're going in your life. That was probably one of the most epiphanic moments in my life, was to take that exercise that you encouraged me to do many times, and I finally did it, and I thought, wow, I get it. I see why I've got all these other things I could be doing. I'm into music, I'm into sports, I'm a counselor, but what is it that I can hone down and really what I want to do the rest of my life? And I have to thank you publicly for helping me do that. Now I'm sure thousands others that have worked with you. So I'll just let you piggyback on that. Why is it important that we have to stop sometimes from what we're doing and kind of figure it out?
Well, it's really easy to just continue doing what we've done. As you mentioned, my early years growing up on a farm, and my dad's expectations for me were that I was continue working on a farm. It wasn't a matter of looking inward or even deciding what our calling was, as much as just being responsible. And much as my dad was a pastor of a little church, we did what was right to do, even if it didn't feel like a fit, didn't give us any joy. We did it because it was the right thing to do. So it was a tough move, not only in terms of family dynamics, but theologically, to move away from that and look at this idea. You mean we really could do something that's enjoyable here on earth, not just waiting until we get to heaven?
Yeah.
So in that process, I developed tools along the way to help people get more clarity. And as you've already mentioned, having a mission statement is really part of that. Just like any good organization is going to have a mission statement that says, this is what we're all about. This is why we do what we do. We can do that as individuals as well. This is what I'm all about, so that every activity in my life reflects back on and embraces this statement about who I am, and certainly ties into, leaving your imprint or leaving a legacy as well.
I love that, your coined phrase about 48 days to the work you love. But even before you get to those 48 days, what you're sharing with us is so important. And that is assessing where we are in life. What are we doing? I know as men, our life is so connected to doing this. As much as people want to talk about the beingness of it, we're still married. Men are especially married to our doingness. And why is that so important to how we live out our life? And that's we're not talking about just a job. When we stop and think about building mission statement, we're talking about a life and career, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's all encompassing. So it ought to include the things that we do with our neighbors, our community, our family. It gives us a framework for all of that. Now, there can be, I know that I've been guilty of overusing those things that I know are most productive and meaningful and fulfilling, in that I rationalize working too much still, because I love what I do. I figured that out. So then it kind of begs the question, why would I need a day off or a vacation? But what I find is that I still need balance. I still need to step away from doing the things that are most meaningful, even if I'm so clear on what those are. It's almost like breathing. If I just exhale, ultimately I'll turn blue and pass out. There have to be those times of inhaling. So I have to structure my time so that I have times to step away. The other thing, as it relates to work, and in today's environment where a lot of us have our work with us, or we have a laptop, and so we can be connected 24/7. It's not like we leave the factory at 5 o'clock. And because we have such easy access, it's easy to just be connected all the time. But if we're connected all the time, if I'm so focused on what it is that I'm doing, even if I'm writing the next book, as you've just done, I start to lose vision and creativity if I just focus in on that. So there still has to be that healthy balance of stepping away, having days in our lives where we spend it with kids, friends, loved ones, whatever, hobbies. And so I'm still at this point learning how to do that. And I have the pleasure of working with other people and helping them figure it out as well.
Well, I think you've hit on a really important part. I know in my own life, I'm a dreamer, and it's good, but having 4 different companies has been very challenging. And you have a wife like I do that says, hey, that's great, but there's other parts of living too, not just dreaming and accomplishing goals. I met most of my goals, thank the Lord, but at what cost? And at some point I have to say, okay, I need to spend more time with my family. There's time I need to spend the time just for my own self and self-reflection. When I think about it's interesting, Dan, you talked about the busyness of life and social media. I hope people are listening to this part, because it really touches my soul. Sometimes we get so caught up in social media, we can lose relationships. We can lose time with each other. And those simple truths that were passed down from your father, my father, our grandfathers, of spending time in story and reading and reflection and with family. And I look at our divorce rate. It's still pretty consistent, but I think people are losing connection. And I think that's another issue of, I know I do some life coaching too. And my big thing is, don't get so caught up in the everyday rat race of social media, that where you no longer can recognize who your friends are, who your family is. I know with women, especially, I know you've probably worked with a lot of women as well as men, and they're huge in the workforce now. They're not just in traditional roles. So how do you deal with people that are dealing with this aloneness in their life, and trying to find out, that their job isn't the only thing, that meeting their goals is not the only thing in life? How do you incorporate that in your work?
In 48 days, the overall message there, I look at 7 different areas of life where we want to identify, what does success look like. So it's going to include things like personal development, social connections, physically, spiritually, as well as career, finances, the more traditional ones. And a lot of times when people think about setting goals or being intentional about anything in life, it's just about those things that are quantifiable, like how much money did I make, and am I going to get a promotion this year? But it's really healthy to look beyond that at those other areas. What are you doing to become healthier, more successful physically, as an example, or in personal development? So we need to step out of just work as being the only definition of us being successful. Now, with social media, it's easy to have the appearance of being really connected, and yet in having relationships that are only an inch deep.
Mm.
I encounter a lot of people who may have 200,000, Facebook connections or Twitter followers, and that they have no trusted relationships. They have nobody that would ever speak the truth in love or call them out on something. So I look for smaller groups of intimate connections where we really share life together.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been very intentional about putting together a couple different groups like that, where it doesn't have a big reach. It's never intended to grow and get large, but people that are really going to challenge me, people that are really going to support me as well. And that's where it gets meaningful. And it's real tempting in today's social media world to live on the surface and not have those relationships that you need at tough times in life.
Well, and our Eagles group was an important part of my life. I was so busy that sometimes I obviously couldn't make the meetings, but if people walked in my shoes for a couple of weeks, they'd understand having 200 employees, and then another business that had 50 employees, and trying to still do life. It was a smack in my face to go, I need relationship. And as small as that may have been, that Eagles group was extremely important to me in terms of just the relationships, if nothing else, because I didn't have it because I was too busy. And so you're right. Stepping back, I had to step back and go, I agree with you. I need more friendships. I need more of those individual small groups in life to help support my own being. I also, just to kind of talk about the book first, I'm piggybacking on what you said. I realized one day when I finished with an attorney in my will, I just finished all the land, the buildings, the investments. I completed all that, signed on the dotted line, thought, wow, I feel a sense of real peace. And yes, I felt that, Dan, but I also felt like there was an emptiness there too, and that was story. I didn't even know my own story. And so that's really what my book is about, is to going back and realizing back into the 1700s, how did I get here? What were the people like that were before me that are flesh and blood? And it was amazing to just look and see all the lessons in life, the stories in life that I missed because I didn't take the time. But now I'm actually, through this book, I'm going to give to my kids a gift that they have never realized before, and that's heritage. And so I guess I share that to say, I know it's important to you, and we'll talk more about this as we move on, but what's your idea about understanding our mortality and what we do with our time?
Wow, that's a big question. Understanding our mortality. Well, you know, we had a pastor at Christ Church, Dan Scott, who helped me get a new perspective on our mortality. I was raised with the theology that we just kind of get through this time on earth. And then if we don't screw up too bad, we get to go to heaven and everything will be peaches and cream. Dan, our pastor, taught us that we are, in a sense, eternal embryos, meaning we are right now becoming what we're going to be for all eternity. That puts a much different perspective on it. So it's not just a matter of getting through this and then everything starts over. We're now developing into the people, the spirits, however we want to present that in terms of what our being will be. But we are becoming the eternal beings that will be forever. That really changes it. And that shouldn't feel like an undue obligation or responsibility. It should be a privilege to be living now as I'd like to continue living forever. And so I am approaching my later years with a lot of anticipation, a lot of excitement. I still want to make sure that there's more ahead of me than there is behind me. I think when we get to that point, the common kind of notion of retirement in our culture, we essentially tell our bodies, you know, we don't need you anymore. And they start sending parts back because it gives us that message. I don't want to do that. I want to go out, and I hope the last day I'm here, I'm coaching people and writing things that are meaningful, doing that kind of work. So I'm not anticipating any kind of time where I unplug and stop doing things that are meaningful. But I think that is going to ease me right into an eternal existence that's going to be just enjoyable as here has been.
It's great. It's great. I guess before we close this segment out, my feeling is when I think about you and Joanne and all the changes that have gone through your life and family, what stands out in you as we kind of close this segment? What are the things, maybe some things that you could tell some of the people of why it's important, how important it is to be connected to family that may not have a connection right now?
Well, there was a time.
What can they do? I guess if they don't have family, what can they do?
Yeah, there was a time some years ago, if you recall, I'm sure, where Joanne and I went through a really horrific business experience where not only did we lose everything, but I woke up the next morning and realized I was about $430,000 in debt. And with my Mennonite background, I didn't feel like it was right to file bankruptcy, and so I didn't. So I spent a lot of years rebuilding after that. And the strength that I got from immediate family, from Joanne, my children, and then those people closest right around us was just indescribable. Without that, I think I would have considered other alternatives. I cringe to think what those might have been. Now, if someone goes into a situation like that and hasn't in advance built those kind of relationships, they are vulnerable. There's no question about it. But at times like that, instead of trying to be an imposter, appear to be something we aren't, it's still a time to reach out to other people who have been through that kind of experience, are willing to walk through us with that. And there are people, when we open ourselves up, there are people who are willing to help at every level. So it just kind of presents the importance of creating and nurturing close relationships, no matter what's going on, whether good or bad. If things are good, nurture the relationships, because there'll come a time where you really need to draw on those. If things are bad or challenging, by all means, absolutely reach out, connect with other people. You can't get through life, good or bad. It's not enjoyable if you're all by yourself, and it's not tolerable if you're all by yourself and things are bad. So just very, very important to be creating relationships. So from a biblical perspective, we could use a model of we all need a Paul, a Barnabas, and a Timothy. Somebody older and wiser to challenge us, again, to speak the truth in love, somebody who's kind of where we are, where we link arms and say, how can I help you? And then to be privileged to have somebody younger that we can speak into their lives as well. I think the absence of any of those leaves a gap. So I'm always looking to nurture those relationships at those three levels.
Wow, that is powerful. That is extremely powerful. Yeah, you're right. You need all three. Well, Dan, we're gonna close this segment, but we'll be back, and we'll be sharing some other things with all of you that I think you'll really enjoy. We're so proud to have Dan Miller with us this afternoon, and we'll be back for segment 2.